Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cartalicchio. I want to welcome you to another segment of Destination Health Podcast, where we are finding function in a dysfunctional world. Very excited about today's conversation. Want to welcome to the program Valerie Maksym. Valerie, how are you today? What's going on?
Hello, Dan. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I just look forward to what we're going to talk about today.
We just did a little bit of a podcast before the podcast, which is what I do always. But when we were talking before, when we were discussing the podcast, you were busy, I was busy. We finally, we were able to get a date together. And when you were telling me all of the stuff that you went through in your life, right? Remember, I said, okay, stop. Let's go. Let's just schedule this up because our motto is to motivate, educate, and inspire. Valerie's 51-year-old mom of four, not one, not two, not three, but four, a grandmother to two, a Gigi to two, nationally qualified bodybuilding figure competitor, personal trainer, life coach. She likes to inspire others, unleash their inner superhero, which she believes that everybody has. She's been through a lot in her life. She knows the messes that we all go through. I have my back up against the wall. Divorced twice because she just wanted to get married a second time, right? Failed relationships, dynamics of a blended family, kids on drugs, cheats, unfaithful men, abuse, panic attacks, not fitting in, living on her own for the first time at the age of 44. You've written a book, step-by-step guide from being broken to being a thriver, heart full of passion, loves to help people. Valerie, welcome to the program today. So tell me, what's going on with these relationships? What happened? What's the deal? Divorced twice. How did that, how did it negatively impact your life? We're just going right for the jugular here, right out of the gate, right?
Divorced twice, that was really hard on me because my entire life, I always had this fairy tale dream of going to be married to one person. We're going to live happily ever after, and life is going to be wonderful. and I really did have that feeling. It wasn't just, I really did. So after my second divorce, I was, talking to a counselor friend, and she's like, you're the common denominator of your mess. And, you don't really want to hear that, right? Because you're like, but they, and I had to really, really let that settle in and realize that I was the common denominator. And why did I allow all that I allowed in marriage one, marriage two, a relationship that I was in, really had to take some time out and to really figure that out because nobody could figure that out for me. No one's lived my life. So it would be real easy to say, well, let me just go see someone and they can tell me. Problem is I was in counseling in that I want to say I was married about 24 years between the two marriages. And I was probably in counseling on and off for 20 of those years. So if we could figure it out then, I really needed to take some time out to search. And that was hard because I went from 18 years old in high school to pregnant, married, divorced at 30, married again 6 months later. So I really have never, ever, ever been on my own. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have the financial means, so there was a lot to it.
So you just went from high school, marriage, kids, divorced, and then you got married again. So what did you learn? Like I said, our motto is to motivate, educate, and inspire. What did you learn? What did you come up with? You're the common denominator. I agree. We all have to look at ourselves first. What did you come up with? What was those thoughts that you had?
So what I came up with through a lot is my dad passed away at 12 years old. And that was a very pivotal time because, girls get their self-esteem from their fathers. It's very, very important. So when my dad passed away, I took it as, I didn't want to, at that time, I didn't want to really face it. So I kind of in my head just acted like it didn't happen, if that makes any sense to people. Like I was angry that he left me and I just pretended it didn't happen. I mean, yes, we had the funeral. The next day I was like, it was like nothing ever happened. We never spoke.
You were preteen when this happened. So it's not like you can recognize and you have the awareness of it.
Right. And so I had to trace back to where this all dysfunction started from. And the last day that my dad was alive, I was with him and he had leukemia. And so when he did go, he fell and I was with him. So I was the only one with him. I was up in the middle of the night with him, taking care of him. At 12 years old, I watched this. I run to my room. My mom doesn't know I see all this. We never talk about it. My mom didn't even know any of this till last year. And so I just really, yes, it was, that's a whole nother story, but I just really internalized things. So I got quiet. I began having panic attacks. I didn't know what was going on. But so you're asking that question, how did I, with the men, what I learned when I took things back subconsciously, way back at 12 years old, what I learned was when anything traumatic happens to me or happened to me, the only way I knew how to cope with it was to just put it under the rug immediately and pretend it didn't happen, put a smile on my face, and we're going to keep on going.
Right.
And so
a lot of people do that, by the way. It's kind of being stoic, in certain respects. And maybe for you being 12, I mean, you didn't know any better. So we just
right.
that was just a coping mechanism.
I don't know I say back then, like I'm so old, but I don't know. Now we go to counseling for everything. We get help, we get therapists. And I don't know, back there, it was kind of more of you didn't really hear of that too much, people, right. I'm sure they did, but that's just not the place that we were at to be paying for all of that. So I just realized that. So whenever, my first husband, when he did things to me, I so desperately wanted to be loved that he could just do whatever to me. And I would just immediately put it under the rug as if it didn't happen. I mean, even things like cheating, and it'd be like, okay, well, where are we going to dinner? Let's go to the movies. And I have people and friends looking at me like, you just found out and you want to go to dinner with him and you want to go to the movies. And I always thought it was because I had such a good, loving, kind, caring heart, because I'm so forgiving and I'm so understanding and, just playing the bigger person. But I realized over time, then you go into marriage too, and that had its whole set of things. And I went into a relationship that had its whole other set of things. And so I had to really take a time out and be like, what is even more so the common denominator, not just because of my dad, but what I realized was my entire life, and I know this word is so cliche, we hear it all the time, but my entire life, I was really searching without knowing for self-love. And so by not having any self-love in my life, I didn't have boundaries in relationships. I couldn't say, you're not going to talk to me like that. You're not going to cheat on me for the 25th time. You're not going to do these things to me. I would have some boundaries there because I would have enough care for myself. And so, just taking this time out, I've learned so many different things, through my life, and even finding self-love. What does that mean? There's like so many steps to it. So in writing the book, there's even little things as limiting beliefs, the things that hold us back that are stuck in our subconscious from childhood. And I had a lot of that. So
what were some of your limiting beliefs?
I know people have a hard time hearing this one, but it was me. I literally thought I was the most unattractive person on the planet. I mean, for whatever reason, the men I chose were really quickly to tell me how unattractive I was. And,
so they kind of balanced it out a little bit, right?
They would, pinch my fat places, even if it wasn't really there. And I was never enough. Well, if you had black hair, you would be prettier. If you had brown eyes, you would be prettier. If you could lose 20 pounds, you're pretty. So it always went to my looks. It always went to
the physical part.
Physical. It was always physical. It's never who I was inside. So I never felt like I could ever, no matter what I did, felt like I could measure up. So I just figured I couldn't date the right men or find the right men because I just wasn't pretty enough. And so it was just kind of settle, like, well, maybe if I was prettier like her, or or maybe if I did have that pretty black hair, all these men like, it's beautiful. And, they're from Brazil and these places are just absolutely gorgeous.
Right.
I can't ever have that then because it's just my DNA. It's just not going to happen. Right.
Right. Sure.
And I just had to realize in finding my self-love that when I say the inner superhero, I just had to really get back to the basics, the foundation of who is Valerie? Like that inner superhero is, your true self, your authentic self. Like what makes me happy? What makes me me? We're all, my goodness, everybody has their own DNA. We're all so unique, but yet we're all trying to be like somebody else. And, the TV, the this or that, well, you're not good enough unless you're this, or you have this kind of waist or this kind of, and just really taking the last 7.5 years to myself. Friendships have gone, girlfriends have gone.
Well, that happens all the time. Are you talking about when you start growing? you know, those
Right.
that are around you, when they don't jive with you and it's just not
Right.
good for you, they just seem to disappear, right?
Right. They're not understanding your journey. You're trying to to grow and to figure things out. And I don't know, just it was the best thing I could have done. It wasn't the easiest thing, but it was the best. So I feel like, because I did take that's not everybody's going to take. Tell me when I'm talking, Valerie, I'm not taking
Mhm.
7.5 years out of my life to remove myself from all of this to learn. And I'm like, well, that's great because I did. And so I'm writing a book and I'm going to help, share some things that I learned, and maybe I can shorten your learning curve in some things that you're going through to help you to figure it out faster than I did.
So what's the name of the book?
It's called Maximizing Life.
I
And
like that.
and it's really just every day, just doing something, even if it's 1% more in all areas of your life.
Mhm.
We're more than just physical, we're emotional, we're mental, we're spiritual. We have all the different, the things that we want financially. There's so many areas of our life that we're not just one thing. So if you look at it like a wheel on
Mhm.
your car, and
Mhm.
you have spokes, and you only work on one and it's really strong, but what about the rest? I mean, we've got to find some balance. So maximizing life, I like to say too, living from level to level without getting stuck, because that's what happens is we're here,
Sure.
we want to go here, and life happens, because it's going to happen to all of us. We spoke about this earlier, and we get stuck sometimes,
Mhm.
and then we stay stuck for way too long. Like, for me, whenever I had my heart broken, after my 2 marriages, and I dated
Mhm.
someone, my heart was literally shattered, and 2.5 years just stuck trying to figure out, what happened. I did
Right.
everything. He was the one. Why did he reject me? Why did he cheat? Why did he choose her? And I had to realize, on this, I'm just going to decide on here. I realized another thing that I realized in this was I was never rejected. Everybody has a free will to choose.
That's
So if
right.
anybody out there is feeling rejected because somebody left you, for me, I had an aha moment, because I realized everybody has a choice, and no differently than if I was dating someone and I said, hey, we're going to break up, and I move on and I choose someone else. Doesn't mean like, oh, I rejected you, you're garbage. And,
Mhm.
that's how I felt. And I stayed stuck. I was so stuck that I would just rehearse it and rehearse it. And then I would go deeper in my being stuck, and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, to where, oh my gosh, I can't get myself out of here. I need help. I can't get out.
Yeah, so many people do that. They kind of like relive that whole
Mhm.
stuckness, if you will. Is that a new word that I just made up? That stuckness that
That
you
sounds
have,
good. That
right?
sounds good.
And it just keeps perpetuating, and you go into that valley of despair. So what gets you stuck today?
Today, I get stuck whenever things aren't moving along as fast as I want them to.
So you're impatient.
Yes, I am impatient. I actually have the word patience written on tattooed on my foot by a butterfly. It has a lot of symbol meaning to me, because I've really had to slow down, because I am a go-getter. I'm a leader. Like, I can make things happen. But the problem is, in my relationships, I came in like a tornado and made things happen,
Mhm.
but it really wasn't what was for me, but I wanted it. And no matter what, I was going to make that happen. No patience, like, we're
Yeah.
going to make this happen. And so just having to remind myself to take a deep breath, and
Mhm.
just do the best I can do every single day. When I find myself in stuck situations, I remind myself, Valerie, you're doing all you can do today, because I really am. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
literally living in the moment. What can I do to make this better? What can I do to you know keep growing? Because what we do today in our life shows up in what, 30, 60, 90 days. So
That's right.
when we're at a place in life today, well, then you can look backwards. Well, what have I been doing the last 30, 60, 90 days?
Mhm.
Because it's kind of an indicator of where I'm at today. So I have to just keep reminding myself, if I just keep doing, so I don't stay stuck or find myself stuck again.
Sure. And that's important. And then you found yourself at the age of 44 on your own for the first time. So you thought we were going to talk about micros and macros and stuff. We'll do that another time. We can figure
That's
that out. Yeah, we'll figure that out. Yeah,
right.
I eat fish and I eat
Yeah,
broccoli. Okay, all
exactly.
right, there. We discussed that. So what was that like for the first time?
That was, I really had to be broken to leave, because if you've never lived on your own, which I've never lived on my own, financially, I never
Mhm.
really worked. I was always a stay-at-home mom. Didn't have an education. I did
Mhm.
go to college with my first husband just for some classes at a community college, but I didn't finish anything. So
Mhm.
you can imagine I've raised my kids and I have 4 kids. And so things had to be in a really, really tough place. And the only reason I finally left the second marriage was because I was having a panic attack every day for the last year. It just, things
Right.
were
It just reached critical mass. You
just
just
like,
had enough. And that's what happens.
I just couldn't breathe. And like, I'm like, okay, what is going wrong? And like, I mean, driving to the grocery store, pull over 5 times because I'm shaking so bad. I'm like, okay, this is really something.
Your body's telling you something's not right.
Yes. And so when I did leave, it was, it was tough because, you know, when you live in a 6,000 square foot home and you drive a $200,000 car and you have everything,
Right.
to be a person that's never worked. And even though I had things, that was his stuff. So, you know, it wasn't like, okay, you could just go take this money out and insure. My relationship wasn't like that. So when I left, I literally left with very, very few things. And I had to even go lease a car and figure it all out. So that was really the hardest thing. But I knew somehow, some way it was going to have to work out. And I will tell you, I had some very dark days. Didn't want to get out of bed, you know, just would cry and
Mhm.
a long time, you know, just, it was not easy. So I'm not saying, you know, it's easy to get
Right.
out, but looking back, it was worth it. I wouldn't trade anything for it. But in the moment, I just literally thought my life was over. Like I can't even, just even looking back at those days, I can kind of feel those feelings of, there was no smile on my face. I didn't
Mhm.
know how to smile. I didn't talk to people. I mean, I was checked out,
Yeah.
broken.
So, what were a couple of few things that you did besides counseling to help yourself get out of this rut, if you will?
So when I did find my life coach and I was talking to her, one thing that, you know, I had been asked by a couple people too, not just her, but, you know, what are your hobbies? Now at this point I didn't even know who I was, much less my hobbies. I didn't even
Mhm.
know what restaurants I liked or where I liked to travel. I mean, it was just really pathetic where I
What
had
are you, yeah,
allowed,
what are you talking about? You know, you're like, what do you mean hobbies? You know,
like,
I'm barely getting by here, right?
I'm trying to breathe. At that moment in my life, I literally wore a rubber band around my wrist because I
Right.
had to remember to stay in the moment because I
Mhm.
was so zoned out. And so you're asking that, and I was at coffee with a friend, and at this time, my only sanity was I started running. I've never been a runner. I hate running. I ran the Houston Marathon, all 26 miles, never stopped. I was searching for a hobby, something that I could find that could make me feel good. I tried
Mhm.
tennis. I tried that. I was trying things, you know, many things I would say no to. And I tell people, don't ever say no, at least try it, at least go
Mhm.
see. You know,
Mhm.
you may not think this. So by putting myself out there, I was at least getting in front of people, meeting people,
Mhm.
met a friend through that. And then we sat down for coffee and she told me, she's like, hey, I'm signed up for this bikini competition. And she doesn't know this about me, but my brain started going off because before I got married with my first husband, 18, I was a gymnast and I loved all the fitness competitions. It's something I had wanted to do from 18 years old. Like I
Right.
would had their little posters on my wall back then. We had posters on our wall, you know, taking the pictures out and of the girls. And it was just something, a dream of mine. But here I'm 44. These girls are like 20. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, that's not happening
Oh, this
today.
is not happening anytime soon,
I
right?
have
That's
4
your first
kids,
thought. Right.
stretch marks, all the things. I mean, I'm
Right.
listening to her talk. I'm like, this sounds really cool. And she's my age at this
Right.
time. And she's like, no, you can do it. You know, there's a category for 40 and up and you're only with ladies your age. And, you know,
Right.
she's giving me the whole scoop. And so long story short, I'm like, oh my gosh, I went home, I looked it up online and I signed up. And I was like, okay, what is that? And then, and then I
Now you're like, I have to make this happen.
come to find out she backs out.
Nice.
So now I'm like, okay, do I still do this alone or do I just back out like she did? But I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I was pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Now, mind you, this was in Dallas. So that means I have to drive there myself. I
Mhm.
didn't have the money to have a coach like you would normally have. So I had an
Mhm.
online person. I paid like $99 to. They wrote me a plan.
Mhm.
I really had to do it myself.
Who
And I'm,
did you remember who you used?
was it like, I think it was called like maybe Bombshell Fitness. They like had a
Yeah, yeah,
monthly
sure. Yeah.
out of Florida, I think. And so, and it was fine. Like it was good, but it wasn't, you know, your full hands on. So I really had to be dedicated because when I get on that stage, you know, I better do everything I was told to do. And I didn't, the thing about it was I could follow the diet and the gym part, but what I did not realize when I got there was how important the posing was. So I get there.
It's all about the posing.
I get there. Now, mind you, I've never been on stage. I'm talking here, I'm doing this. I've grown so far to be where I'm at today. Back then, just being in front of people was like an absolute. So by myself, I get there, having to go on stage for the first time. I'm coming on stage from a different direction than I thought I'd be coming on. I literally turned the wrong way like 5 times. I'm looking at the judges, like just staring at them, and I'm supposed to be posing, and I don't even know because I'm so thrown off. I just want to cry, right? I'm thinking in my head all these things like, what are you doing? Like, you look ridiculous. People are laughing at you. Like, there's like 500 people watching me, and I don't have any clue what I'm doing. I literally wanted to get off that stage and run to my hotel room and not come back, because I had to go back on 2 more times immediately back around, because I was in 3 categories. And that was a pivotal moment. Do I leave because I failed?
Right.
Or do I make myself suck it up and go embarrass myself again? So I went back around, got on stage again. That time I felt a little bit better because I don't know, just something about it. I wasn't so shaky. The third time I went around, I was like, okay, Valerie, you got this. And now this category was the 40 and up category. The third time around, I went and I'm just like, I relaxed and I did it. In that category, I got first place.
Wow, that's great. First time out.
First time out. But that was my heart is pounding talking about this right now. Because I mean, just going out there that first time, when you are just a person who's broken, drop bottom, you're there by yourself, you're coming out of panic attacks. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know anybody there. Everybody has their coaches and their family. And then you walk out there and you're like, wait, I didn't really practice posing. Like, I mean, I little, but not, I didn't have.
And you're looking at everybody else and you're like, I just might as well follow what they're doing because I don't know.
And everybody else is so cute and doing their whole thing.
Right,
and
right.
I did this for me as a learning moment. It didn't matter, because failure, I always say, is not failure. You're learning. So next time I go back out, I learned from what I did wrong. I learned the next time, okay, we're going to get posing next time. We're going to, to fix these things. And I think I probably grew like leaps and bounds just in that single event, because I put myself so far outside my comfort zone.
Right. And it's interesting because I just was in a course earlier this morning and with a friend of mine, and he said, listen, you have experiences in life, and you have your table and then you have your legs, of course. And, oh, I stink because of this. And if you hit 3 yeses, the 4th yes is not a no. So if you think you're not good at something because of something mom did, something dad did, something your spouse did, right? No matter what that 4th one is, it's always a yes. Now you have to get the experience, you have the resources, and you need references, and you need to look at it and say, how do I need to make it different? And you'll learn what it is that you need to do. So kudos for you for getting out there and putting yourself out there, because that's not an easy type of a situation to do, right? That's not easy at all. And you have all of this other stuff that's going on. You got all this other stuff that's going on. What's going on? Kids on drugs too. I mean, you just were getting hit with everything all over the place, right?
I was, I have 3 kids from my first husband, 1 from my second. And my first husband was, that was a very, what do you want to say? Very volatile relationship. It was, it was my kids went through a lot as young kids. And I didn't, I came out of that relationship so broken. And I'll just talk briefly here. I'll talk more on this, but I left that relationship because my husband took me to his place of business with the intent to kill me, to bury me. He had a bobcat. He was getting ready to go dig the hole, told me exactly what he was going to do to me.
Oh my goodness.
Where, and I'm praying in my head, right? He has me in a headlock driving out there trying to break my neck. And so when we get there, he's telling me all these things he's going to do to me. And there's nobody, there's no screaming, there's no running anywhere. We're in the middle of like nowhere. And so I'm just praying. I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm just like in my head, like, this is it. I just wanted to see my kids one more time. And when we got out there, we got in the Bobcat to start it. And he normally keeps his keys in the Bobcat. Well, they were in his car. And so he's like, hey, we got to go back to the car, and get my keys for this. And so we go back, and he realized he locked his keys in the car. So the car's locked. So now he has to call someone out there. So obviously he's going to stop his plan with me, because now he's going to know he was out there.
And he's explaining all of this stuff to you.
Oh
right?
yeah, he was exactly. And he was a very angry person on drugs and stuff. But my kids saw a lot in that relationship. Even though I tried to protect them because my kids are my world, I really tried to protect them. I went from that relationship, immediately met someone long distance. So I felt safe talking to him because I met him at a friend's house here, and we were married 6 months later, but we drove his stuff down, drove through Vegas, got married, came home. Now we have this blended family, and my kids never healed, and they just had a lot of anger and a lot of they didn't know how to express it.
Unresolved trauma that goes on when it comes
they
to
got
that.
in trouble. They did all drugs. It was horrible. My one son had to go to military school. Just the fights. You don't know in the one time one of my sons was beaten with like golf clubs, and I had to drive out to 3 hours to pick him up. Didn't even recognize him. Like, they almost killed him. Like, the things a mom shouldn't have to go through. I've been through so much with my kids, so much anger, so much and you're just like not wanting to go to bed and not wanting to have your phone on, just all of that, just emotions of what's going to, can we make it through one more night? And I'm also trying to get out of this relationship. And then I have going through with my kids, and, are they going to be alive tonight? And, so they went through a lot, and
to say the least.
And so, and then when I married when I married my next husband so quickly, my kids didn't care for him, and he didn't care for my kids. So I was the middle person in that relationship. So you don't even know how that goes. That's a tough one to be in the middle.
Yeah, that's just falling apart right then and there. It's not even going to the next, level. There's no comfort with that one, right?
No. And so one of my sons at some point, he'll come on and talk with me, because I didn't even know. So we'll just kind of fast forward here real quickly. But when I started my life coaching 7 years ago, I got my first certification through the John Maxwell program. When I divorced, and that's always been my heart, to help people. My first husband told me, or my second, both of them actually in different times, told me I'd be a terrible life coach. I don't know how to even connect dots. So it was just always a negative. And so I got this certification, but I hadn't been through my stuff yet. I'm not healed yet. So I'm not going to start coaching until I come out the other side. That's just me personally. And so recently I've come out, but when I did start my, where I was like, I'm doing this about a year ago, I started coaching my kids. I asked them, can I life coach you guys? Like, will you be willing?
Can I start training you now? Right.
And they were so open to it, which I was surprised, because we would do it.
Interesting. How old? What was the age range for that?
Well, that would have been 2 years ago. So I would have been 20, probably about 29. One would have been 30 and 27. And then my other daughter that's 18. But it was very interesting in coaching my kids first, in just setting that safe space for them to talk. I will tell you, though, I think the reason that they were open was after my second divorce, I individually went to each of my kids, and I sincerely apologized to them. And I said, we can talk about the past all you guys want, but I can't change it. But I can promise you I can change our tomorrow.
Yeah, sure.
And so when I started coaching them, I would have never known some of the things my son, one of my sons that went through all that with the drugs, how he opened up and shared with me and why he was doing the drugs. And he's like, Mom, watching you self-sabotage,
right?
I couldn't fix it. He goes, I knew I was going to either be in prison or dead, because I was killing myself to try to. He said it was so painful. He goes, I can take physical pain, but the emotional pain was so much greater watching you go through what you went through, and knowing that you were in denial, telling me you loved him and that you're okay. Right. I mean, just hearing it from a kid's perspective, it was like, oh my goodness, like, I didn't realize my decisions, how they so affected my kids, and when they went down that trail with the drugs, and
how old are they when this was happening? Because they're very impressionable, right? Yeah.
So my one son, when he started, he was 17, 16, 17. He went to military school at 17. My other one, he didn't get as bad till after high school, because he was always the football player and the star player. But the second he got out in first semester in college,
it just went all from there.
It completely it went overboard, and it just escalated all the way until it was when I divorced. So he literally did not come out of that until about 8.5 years ago. It was about a year after I finally divorced the second one. He had to heal. And through this time of after my second divorce,
Mhm.
me working on me, I didn't say anything to my kids, but every single one of my kids have healed on their own.
Mhm.
I never said a word to them. I never asked them to change anything. And they said simply by watching me gave them the strength. I mean,
That's
they were,
awesome. And that's life altering for you. That must have made
it
you
is.
feel
And so
really,
like,
really
yeah,
good,
like it's my
right?
heart. So like, even like in my life coaching, like I have different programs for people of all different things because I've been there, I've walked it, I've been through it, I know. And then, to have to come out with some, tools like this, and just to have your kids be open and talk, and they
Right.
feel safe enough to talk. Because the one thing that's really easy and really quick to do in as a parent is when they want to start talking, you just stop them and say, no, that's not how it was. But I realized by doing that,
Yeah, sure.
I'm not allowing them to heal. So I had to really like bite my tongue, like,
Hmm.
okay, keep talking, because it's, because your
Yep.
intent as parents never to put your kids through all that hurt and pain and trauma. And I have 4 kids, and they all saw things differently, and they all have healed differently, and they all, reacted differently. And so just
Sure.
learning to let them talk it out and heal it out, and to walk those steps, and to, I don't know, it's just, it makes my heart so happy to see that, now I can say, okay, my house is the
Is in
happiest,
order. It's in order.
yes, that it could ever
Right.
be. And I'm ready to just turn around and help other people who maybe were where I was at a couple years ago, or they're just stuck, or they just need that, like I said, like, some of the coaching, you don't realize we get
Hmm.
coaches for our kids for all kinds of sports. Oh, I need a tennis coach. I need
Right.
a golf
Right.
coach. I need a football coach. I need all these coaching, but you don't ever think about, wait, in life, I'm stuck. I need someone to just give me some guidance and listen and safe
Right.
space to talk it out, and to know that they're my cheerleader, and that they're behind me, and that they're kind of, you know, I will never tell anybody what to do. That's, we don't do that in life coaching. We're kind of like an attorney. We keep asking questions, and you're going to
Right.
figure it out. And so it just makes me happy to be at this place in life that, oh my goodness, all these years later at 51, I'm finally ready to do, because now I have been through the fire, through hell sideways about 5,500 times, made it through. And I'm here to help, tell other people there is hope no matter where you're at in life. It does not matter how broken you are or where you're at. It does not matter. There is a way.
And no matter what age you are, it doesn't make any
Mm,
difference. You could be 60
no,
like I am. You could be 40. You could be 70. You got to start at one point in time,
mhm,
whatever that day is, and you got to keep moving
exactly.
forward. So kudos to you
So,
for helping out your children, and everybody's house is in order, which is awesome. So let's go back to the book here.
okay.
How difficult was it to write this book? Was it cathartic? Was it, you're reliving everything, or was it exciting? And you just, were like, oh my goodness, this book is coming out, and it's going to be 3 days. It's just like, when Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky, it was like 2 or 3 days. So did you go through that, quickness, or did it take time? You had to keep going back and forth.
I started this book 22 months ago.
Hmm.
I've reformatted it like 4 times. The interesting thing, it's taken a while, but I've healed through writing it.
Hmm.
There's many things that I wrote that were not in my book. I wrote it because I'm not a person. I don't feel like my book is meant to talk about any of my exes or things I've been through to
Hmm.
trash
Hmm.
them, put them under the bus, because it takes 2 to tango, right? Like,
Hmm.
I was a part of it. I allowed it. That's
Sure.
not the premise of my book. But I can promise you, I can probably match anybody's stories of what I've been through, but that's not but in writing in the beginning, I would write that out, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, that doesn't help anybody. We're taking, maybe when I'm speaking places, if it's the appropriate setting, I'll share
Hmm.
something. But so I would say this last year, I finally was able, this last 6 months, to write my book out exactly how I felt it should be written out,
Hmm.
because I wrote it in a way without realizing it until I went back and looked. It's written the exact steps that I
Hmm.
needed it to be written in. So now when I speak places and I help people, it's written on a 3rd grade level. It's not anything that people are going to be like, because I had a hard time forever. Like, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not I don't know all the
You're
proper
just you're
terms.
just who you yeah, you're
My
just who
story.
you are, and you just want to help people, and you
Mhm.
wrote this book,
Yeah,
and everybody can read it. So there's no, restrictions on who can read it and who can't read it. It is what it is at that point, right?
exactly. So I've had lots of ups and downs, hired a company, ended up, again, I'm new at this. I didn't do my due diligence to realize that there weren't a legit company. So had to start over with
Not
that.
easy writing a book.
That's a whole nother thing. So when you're asking how easy was it, let's just say in school, I had ADD, but back then we didn't diagnose ADD. So English, writing, anything that had to do with that, I literally passed with a D-. Like if it could be a 70 to pass, it was extra tutoring, extra everything to pass with that 70. So to actually sit down, write a book, I had to use grammar, different things to help, do all the grammar with it and all that. It's my first book. I will do things differently next time when I'm in a different position financially. But for me, I'm very proud of it because I have done everything. I designed the book cover. I wrote the book. I edited the book. I'm doing the, what do you call it next? I'm having the hardest time right now. I'm formatting it, but I'm getting ready to finally just have to hire someone to help me with the last part. That's the holdup right now. My book has been done. The formatting is the kicker to get it up to upload into the Kindle and into the Amazon. So I reached out to someone today to say, okay, what can we do here? Because I'm like 95% done, but with that last 5%, it's not uploading. So I need that, then it's going to go. But
when's the date that you're going to unleash the book? Do you have that? Is there a specific date that you have in mind?
Second, I have this uploaded to Kindle. They will give me an approximate date. I'm told it could be anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks once I hit that upload button. My goal is this week, regardless, to have somebody help me get that thing uploaded because it's done. It's ready. It's just a couple little minor things, and it's.
Okay. You're going to send me a watermark version of the book, and we're going to talk.
I'm going to, and I haven't figured out how to do that.
You're going to send me a watermark version, and we're going to talk about the book.
I will do that. Yes.
So, what's one story that you want to share with us that's not in the book? Another story.
Things that are not in the book. I don't really. Give me a topic, because I feel like I kind of touched on a lot of things in my book. Another story. Well, I really didn't talk about too much about my public speaking, so
that's what I was going to go with. Go ahead, tell me about this.
About that because, I don't know if you have any areas of your life that are like this, but I've always kind of known in my heart that I'm going to be on stages speaking. But if you looked at me and you looked at my lifestyle and you looked at who I was, you would say, okay, that person over there is the last pick to be on the stage speaking, So, whenever my dad passed and all of that happened and I began to have panic attacks in 6th grade, I internalized everything. So I became labeled as the shy girl. So when you're labeled as the shy girl, but you're not shy, it really kind of messes with you because then you kind of start playing around with the idea, well, maybe I am shy, but I don't feel shy, but I'm told I'm shy. And then you just kind of act shy because I don't know. It's a weird twist you get into, like a never ending cycle. And so, whoops, hang on a second. Something just happened here. Sorry. My computer did something. Are you there?
You're good. It's all good.
Okay. Because you totally went away. I don't know what happened, but if you can see me, we're good. Okay. So anyways, I don't see if this is weird, but I'll keep talking. So talking about the public speaking part of it, when I first divorced, I was, we have this mega church in Houston. Some people know Joel Osteen. I went down there. They were just having a motivational thing. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to go down there. And I was sitting there and like something I will never forget. This was 7 years ago. Something out of the sky said, you're going to be on stage just like him. I literally thought I was going to throw up. And I just put that out of my mind. And it has never gone away, and it keeps coming back and keeps coming back. So knowing, that I'm going to start, my public speaking and get on stages, I've gotten myself ready, by doing the Dale Carnegie course. And now I'm also an assistant teacher in the class to be a helper, which is fun to have that experience. Just getting out of my comfort zone, kind of like I said before, life happens outside of your comfort zone.
100%.
What I realized was, I had this thing in my head and I'm thinking, okay, but I keep living outside my comfort zone. When is it ever going to get better? And it doesn't, because what happens is, you're in your comfort zone and then you do things out here. Well, then pretty soon your comfort zone becomes bigger because now that's comfortable. And then now we got a bigger comfort zone. Then we start doing things out here. So it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing. So
it keeps growing. And this is exactly what I was talking to a friend of mine who is a business coach of mine. It's kind of like, that center is the non-negotiables. And as you make your life more and more non-negotiable, it grows and it grows and it grows and it keeps moving out and keep moving forward. And so that's great. So we're looking forward to the book coming out. So you're going to have to let us know, because you send me that watermark version, or if you're going to put it in paperback, I want a signed version.
I will
So
get you
that'll
a hard
be
copy, signed version of it once it's done, but yes, it will be paperback, hard copy. And I'm also going to read the Audible.
That's awesome. So we're almost done here. See how quick this goes?
I know, it's good.
It just goes really quick when you're
Once
having
you're passionate, it's not work. It's just easy to talk.
It's just, you just go. If you were to give our listeners three tips, three strategies, what would they be?
I would say, take time for yourself. I mean, that's just number one. It's not selfish. You live with you for the rest of your life. That's the only guarantee. People will come and go in our lives. You are with you your entire life. So invest in yourself. Be good to yourself. Take care of yourself. Another thing I like to tell people, just don't be so hard on yourself, because we're always growing. Every single day. I will never have it figured out, and I will never tell anybody that I know everything. Not even close. I believe life is just about continually growing forward, whatever that looks like. But just you learn in your mistakes, and again, like I said, everything in life happens for a reason to us. Because I'll interject here, because I do love this about Tony Robbins. I've done his course too. And I absolutely love when he says he thanks his mom for all the abuse and everything he went through with her, because he would not be
here, right, where he is, right.
Because of, he went through some horrific things, and he's thankful because it made him who he is. So I think sometimes we just look at life like, man, I was dealt this horrible deck of cards, and no, sometimes the more you go through and the harder the things you go through, you're meant for greatness, and just change that mind shift and think of all the, things you can do with that, and help and turn around and help people and be a strength to others. And, and also forgive yourself, because I will tell you, when you ask those tips, I could forgive people like nobody's business. Like I said, literally.
But you never did it to yourself though, right?
There's not a person on this planet that I have not forgiven, and truly mean that. I'm not going to talk bad about anybody in my life. I don't have anything bad to say. It's part of who I am. Forgiveness is there. But forgiving myself for what I put my kids through, I literally probably
most difficult thing, right?
But I thought I had healed. About 6 months ago, I called one of my sons and I just broke down crying, because I feel like what I see, the things that he has dealt with and gone through, are because if my life was different, his life would have been different. So the guilt, and I've had to realize, and he even told me, Mom, you have to just let it go.
Let it go.
Forgive yourself.
And just like you learned, he has to learn, right? So he has to go on his journey, and I'm sure he's doing fine, and he's beginning to figure out what he needs to do with his life. So it's all good. And you could be there for a guiding force for him, and you can help him out. And, that's one way that you could sit there and contribute to what he has. So that is all good. So Valerie, this has been a great conversation today. Our next conversation is going to be with your book.
Yes.
So I'm going to be contacting you in a couple of weeks or so. So just to make sure that book is ready, and then we can get it. I'll read it, and then we'll have a discussion, surrounding your book. I'm sure we'll be able to pick out some things that we can discuss. Where can people find you if they want to do some life coaching with you?
I have a website called maksimizinglife.com. And Maksymizing is spelled like my last name. For those of you that don't know, my last name is Maksym. So it's Maksym. So maksimizinglife.com.
That's awesome. So we recommend Valerie 100%. So give her a call. She's been through it. She probably, when you've been through it and when you lived it, you have the empathy, you have the understanding, you have the sympathy. You can figure things out a lot quicker. So we recommend her 100%. So if you're looking for a life coach, rock and roll with Valerie. So Valerie, thank you very much for being on today. It's been an awesome conversation. I want to thank everybody for listening. Please share this with family, friends, neighbors, co-workers. It's an important conversation. Contact Valerie. Until the next time, live your best life. And I'll be reading Valerie's book very soon. Take care, everybody.